Hello and welcome to this late edition of Arirang News. I'm Park Jong-hong, leading the newscast. Today marks 6 months since President Park Geun-hye took office. Just like any other leader of state, so far there have been areas the president has been commended on, as well as issues that have stirred up heated debate. Our presidential office correspondent Eoh Jin-joo gives us a wrap-up of President Park's performance.
More than half of the people here in the nation believe President Park is doing a good job. Her approval rating has steadily increased since her inauguration in February to 54%, according to a recent survey released by Gallup Korea on August 16th. President Park's North Korea policy is where she earned the most points during the past 6 months. She consistently maintained a firm stance against Pyongyang even after the North unilaterally shut down the inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex in April. She made it clear that there will be no compromises made on such provocative behavior. Her strategy eventually drew the North back to the negotiating table, which resulted in a joint agreement between the two Koreas, stating there will be no further halts at the business park and the two will work towards globalization of the complex.
저는 이번 합의를 계기로 과거 남북 관계의 잘못된 관행을 바로잡고 상생의 새로운 남북 관계가 시작되기를 바람하지 않습니다.
President Park also proved her strength in diplomacy. During the bilateral summits with U.S. President Barack Obama and Chinese President Xi Jinping, President Park was able to secure full support from both countries on her push for a trust-building process with North Korea. However, she saw her lowest approval rating in April in the early weeks after she took office due to botched nominations for key members of her new administration. The tax code overhaul announced earlier this month also faced strong backlash from the opposition party and much of the public that criticized the proposal for increasing the burden on the middle class. The Finance Ministry quickly put forth a revised version of the tax code proposal, but many experts criticized President Park's economic team for being ignorant on what helps people's livelihoods. The Presidential Office of Cheongwon explained that if the first 6 months were a period to set up the blueprint for the Park administration, it will now speed up its efforts to push ahead with actual measures to revitalize the economy and create more jobs. Eoh Jin-joo, Arirang News.
The South Korean and North Korean Red Cross will start verifying this week whether the applicants for the upcoming inter-Korean family reunion are still alive. The reunion of families separated by the Korean War is scheduled to take place starting September 25th. The South Korean Red Cross plans to narrow down the list of randomly selected 500 candidates to anywhere between 200 and 250 in the coming days, and confirm the final list of 100 people by September 16th. Meanwhile, the list of candidates from the North will be directly selected by North Korea's ruling Workers' Party. An official at the South Korean Red Cross says, with only a month left until the event, the group will proceed with the necessary preparations as soon as possible. Commercial banks in Korea are planning to reduce this year's recruitment by nearly 30% from a year earlier as they face a continuing drop in profits amid the prolonged economic slowdown. 7 banks, including the country's top lender Kookmin, are expected to hire a total of 2,700 employees this year, which is more than 1,000 people less than last year. Some banks are even saying they might scrap plans to recruit more workers altogether. The cut in new employment is not only in the case of banks. Insurance, credit card, and securities companies, as well as public financial institutions, have announced plans to reduce the number of new recruits this year by up to 50%. As the nation's housing rental prices keep soaring while the property market remains sluggish, the Korean government has rolled up its sleeves to help citizens afford decent homes. The National Housing Fund will be expanded, and interest rates on housing loans will likely be lowered. Our Han Da-eun has the details.
Amid Korea's ongoing slump in the property market, more and more home buyers are turning to jeonse, Korea's unique housing system of lump sum rental deposits, instead of buying their own homes, even if they can afford it. The popularity of long-term housing leases have sent jeonse prices skyrocketing, and it's no news that an average Korean has to go through extreme difficulties in finding a decent place to live. To ease the burden on its people, the government has stepped in. According to the government's latest report on measures to stabilize the housing market, which will be announced sometime next week, the National Housing Fund will be expanded, while the interest rate on housing loans will be lowered to encourage more people to buy homes. Currently, a married couple with a combined income of $40,000 looking to purchase a home that costs less than $270,000 receives government aid of up to $90,000 at an annual interest rate of 4%. Now the government is reviewing ways to expand that support so that married couples with higher incomes can afford to purchase more expensive homes at lower interest rates. Market watchers are welcoming the government's possible new measures, saying that encouraging potential home buyers with purchasing power to buy their homes is the quickest way at this point to revamp the sagging housing market. The government also plans to increase this year's planned supply of jeonse and other housing from the current 36,000 units to much more. Details of the measures will likely be announced next Wednesday. 한다은, 아리랑 뉴스.
More prosecutors are filing requests for chemical castration of sex offenders in the country. The Supreme Public Prosecutor's Office said it filed for 17 requests with the court in the first 7 months of this year, more than double the number from the entire year of 2012. This surge was attributed to a revised law that allows the hormonal treatment for even those who commit sexual violence against adults. Previously, the request was confined to those convicted of sex crimes against minors. In a landmark ruling in January, a Seoul court ordered for the first time that a 31-year-old pedophile be subject to chemical castration. Chemical castration, unlike surgical castration, uses medication to reduce the libido, and the effects typically last for 3 years. Deposed Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak appeared in court for his retrial that began on Sunday in Cairo. Mubarak, who is now under house arrest since his release from prison last week, arrived at the court via helicopter in a wheelchair, escorted by medical and security personnel. The disgraced leader faces charges of complicity in the killing of about 900 protesters during the revolt against him in 2011. And also a few corruption charges. His retrial had begun in May, but was adjourned several times, prompting criticism from the public that claimed the court was avoiding a verdict. Meanwhile, the trial of 3 leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood, who face charges of inciting the murder of protesters, has been adjourned until October, as they were absent for security reasons. The number of Korean tourists visiting China's capital city, Beijing, has plunged by 20% to 215,000, while the total number of foreign visitors has dropped by about 14% on year as of July, reaching only 2.5 million. The dramatic drop is largely attributed to the worsening smog and air pollution conditions in the country. The biggest drop came from Japan, plummeting nearly 54% to 136,000. This was mainly due to the diplomatic standoff over the disputed islands known as Diaoyu in China and Senkaku in Japan. Meanwhile, the Chinese government has recently announced a series of measures to tackle the country's notorious air and water pollution. The 2013 World Rowing Competition has officially kicked off in Chungju, Korea, where hundreds of athletes from around the globe are competing for the world crown. Arirang's Kim Yeon-bin has this report from the scene.
Waving flags in the summer breeze creates a perfect atmosphere for athletes to compete in. On your mark, get set, and off they go. Athletes from all around the globe are competing in the 2013 Chungju World Rowing Competition to find the best of the best, with thousands of spectators worldwide as the judge.
The goal is to do as well as my pair partner and I can do in this race. We have individual goals for ourselves, but we'll keep that to ourselves for now. But it's been great coming to Korea. Everyone's been so nice and very helpful. We're excited to get racing started today.
Well, my goal for today's race is to qualify for the semifinals, and it's great to be here all the way from Holland. It's a beautiful course and everything is so well organized.
The event, hosted by the International Federation of Rowing Association, began with the opening ceremony Saturday, while the competition started Sunday. There are 27 different rowing categories, including single and double scull and cox pair, among others. Spectators were pleased to see an international competition being held here in Korea.
Korea is hosting the World Rowing Competition, and we live in Chungju, so we decided to come to learn about rowing. The scenery is great, as well as the stadium.
Win or lose, athletes and visitors alike will not return home empty-handed, taking back memories. Roughly 1,000 athletes from 75 countries will compete in the 8-day extravaganza, with hopes of taking home the world's rowing title. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News, Chungju.
And finally, turning to the weather, while the mornings and evenings have become noticeably cooler, the scorching hot sun continues to bake the country during the day. These conditions will continue from Monday until Thursday, when the country is forecast to see some rainfall. Here's the outlook near you and elsewhere around the globe. And that does it for all the news for now. Do have a great start to the new week, and thank you as always for watching.